So one of the things that happened in this week's Parsha, I believe, is what? That Moshe is told to speak to the rock. So I wanted to speak a little bit about today, again, this is from Rav Asher Weiss, most of it, if not all of it, that technology and Shabbos. So it really, because nowadays technology, it's an unbelievable thing that you really don't have to do anything anymore. You could just talk. Moshe was supposed to talk to the rock. The rock, that's the connection. Right? Not everyone, but there's Siri's, Alexis, and you tell them, Siri's, turn on the light, do this, and all of a sudden you can do all this malachas, and eventually we'll reach a point where people won't even have to talk anymore. All they'll have to do is just think, and then things will start happening. And so the question is, really, how would this play out in Shabbos? Let's say if someone walks into a room and turns on the light, so already the place can discuss, but what happens if someone talks? And because it's voice activated, or if it's soon will be thought activated things, how would that?
Right now it's body activated.
Now it's body activated, so that already is
Out of the question.
The place can already speak about.
Well, if you're causing it, I mean, it's a big problem, no?
So you're right, so it could be that, or maybe this is. We'll speak just not so much necessarily about this specific thing, but where we see speech b'chlal when it comes to halacha, doing things not in a normal, like almost in a
Indirect way.
Totally indirect, but using speech and using other things, koiches, let's say using the Shem Hashem and things like that throughout different places where we find in the Torah, and we'll see and come back to, maybe we'll come back, we won't have time to come back, actually it's really late, but at least we'll focus on one of the questions. And the times of the Gemara, obviously they didn't have this technology, but they would use shemus and names of Hashem to manipulate things. And so it comes down to the shiloh of, let's say, voice activating on Shabbos. We run into three major shilohs. Could be there's more, but three major shilohs. First of all, obviously, are you responsible for things that are done with speech? If I speak and I cause an effect somewhere, am I responsible for that? If
Lashon hara.
Lashon hara. So that the Torah speaks out. But let's say we found that Moshe Rabbeinu in Sefer Shemos, so he killed a Mitzri, al yedei speech. What happens if someone uses a Shem Hashem to kill someone? Would he be responsible for that? Another thing is, there's a concept in halacha when it comes to Hilchos Shabbos, that things, in order to be chayiv, a person, in order to be responsible, a person has to do a malacha. In order to, let's say, if a person digs on Shabbos, or a person builds on Shabbos, it has to be similar to the malacha that was done in the Mishkan. Right? That's where we learn out all malacha from the Mishkan. So they did not do things pashtus, they didn't do things by speech. They built, they sowed, they dug. So what would we say that using thought activated doing malacha through thought or doing malacha through speech, how would that fit into this whole concept of things have to be done that's similar to the Mishkan? That's another shaila. And then also doing things al yidei grama, causing something to happen, or to do a klach hayad in a strange manner. How would that fit into this shaila? These are the three main shailas that will come up in the discussion. And again, we'll focus really, we'll only have time really to focus on one. And so just to quickly review, so we're going to touch on, we're not going to come out with a halacha lamaisa at all, but we're going to just begin to speak about things, technology, doing things, thought activation or speech activating malacha and yantiv, and we're first going to speak about where we find speech on all different areas in the Torah, and then move on to the next shiloh, which I don't know, we will not have time for. So the first thing, but what's interesting is we'll see just a lot of different things that we take for granted, that we just accept, or a lot of things that we'll touch on a lot of different areas in the Torah. We'll go source by source. So the first source that we'll just speak about, I didn't have time to print up sheets or anything, but there's a Rashim Psachim. So we all know that there's a minhag by Mincha and Shabbos, we say Tzidkascha. Right? Why do we say Tzidkascha? We say every Shabbos, Tzidkascha. It's what?
There's no tachnun.
There's no tachnun, we don't say.
So it's important to know what it is, right?
Right.
Only why we don't say it.
So why do we say it? Let's start with why we do.
Three people passed away.
So three people passed away.
Moshe Rabbeinu, Yosef, and David HaMelech.
Well, on Shabbos.
Shabbos afternoon.
Moshe Rabbeinu passed away he died on Shabbos.
So that's very good. Right. So that's Rabbeinu Shalom Goyin, who's quoting the Rush in Psachim. It says, we say Tzidkascha on Shabbos afternoon, And he says not only do we say tzidkaska, but he adds another halacha that we don't set up a shir. We're not kovei a shir b'rabim on Shabbos afternoon between Mincha and Ma'ariv. And he says the reason why is because, like it was mentioned, that Moshe Rabbeinu was nifter then, and there's a halacha where mevatlin yeshiva, or we're not kovei yeshiva when a Talmud Chacham was nifter. So therefore we say tzidkaska tziduk adin because like the three people were nifter, but we're focusing now on Moshe Rabbeinu was nifter, and we also are not kovei a shir b'rabim during that time.
But we do.
We have so many shir in here.
Yeah.
I'm just saying over the rush.
No, I'm saying it's how they get around
What's
it.
that?
I guess
So ask the rush on this. Maybe we'll all rely on the rush. That's from Rabbeinu Shalom guy. So the rush asks, could be it's not considered to be rabbim. You have to know what's the. Asks the rush that he wrote, but how could it be that Moshe Rabbeinu was nifter on Shabbos? We know there's a medrash in Parshas Vayelach that before Moshe Rabbeinu was nifter, he wrote 13 Sifrei Torah. On the day that he was nifter, he wrote 13 Sifrei Torah.
Going to be Shabbos.
And right, we know that you're not allowed to write on Shabbos. So how could you tell me that Moshe Rabbeinu? No, it says on the day.
Oh.
And it was Dafka. He was nifter on Shabbos by Mincha time.
Yes, it was on the best. I think it's the best Mayom is there, no?
He wrote.
It was daylight.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
wasn't
But,
like later.
no, but I understand. But it was still between Mincha and Marva that behind the day. So he wrote 13 Sifrei Torah. So in that case, how could you tell me that Moshe Rabbeinu was nifter on Shabbos? We know he wrote 13 Sifrei Torah on that day. Says the Rosh, it can't be that he died on Shabbos, that he was nifter on Shabbos, and therefore he rejects this, or he argues on Rabbeinu Shalom Goy. So how do you answer Rabbeinu Shalom Goy? There's a shla. The Chassam Sofer quotes a shla, and the Stipler also quotes a shla. But they both say when Moshe, they said, wait 1 second, let's take a step back. How could you? Let's try to understand B'chal. Let's say Moshe Rabbeinu was nifter on a Tuesday. How would he have written that Sefer Torah? He wrote 13 Sifrei Torah. It takes a Sefer about half a year to a year, 4 hours a day, to write one Sefer Torah. And Moshe wrote 13 Sifrei Torah. So let's say he was able to write with all five, with 5 quills or 10 quills at once. How could he do such a thing? So the Shla says, how was he able to do it? He was able to do it
By verbally. He said
we're getting there. That he wrote, I don't know what this means exactly, but the expression that he used is hashvas kulmis. Like he made a quill right on its own. So
dictated, and he
did some sort of something, and 13 quills started writing at lightning speed, boom, all in one day. They wrote the Sefer Torah. Says Chassam Sofer, the fee that it's no big deal. What happened at Shabbos? Moshe didn't write the Sefer Torah himself. No. Moshe had a quill. He spoke to a quill, and the quill wrote, and he wrote 13 Sefer Torah, and that's how it's allowed. Ask the Chassam Sofer, just parenthetically, there's a machlokas Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai that not according to Beis Hillel your utensils could work on Shabbos. Let's say you could put clothing into dye and let it sit and become dyed over Shabbos. So according to Beis Shammai, it's aser. So how could Moshe Rabbeinu use this quill? It's his quill. How could he use this quill on Shabbos? So then he gives whatever answer he gives. But you could just say very simple that he created the quill with the same. So it wasn't his quill. The Isser is only once you're making the quill right.
There from Friday.
What?
Quill would have been there from Friday.
That's the Chassam Sofer's
writing
question.
is the thing.
No.
Is
So
the biggest
the quill
thing.
is not allowed either, right? According to Beis Shammai. So only if it's his own quill. So he was mafker the quill. You could come with your or he passed like Beis Hillel, but that would be very short because once Moshe Rabbeinu passes like Beis Hillel, there's not much Beis Shammai could argue with. Yeah, that's mamash halacha l'Moshe misinai. So that's the first thing. So this question about how Moshe Rabbeinu was able to write 13 Sifrei Torah, so he wrote it on the day he died. So according to the Rashi, he couldn't, and therefore he must not have died on Shabbos. According to the Rabbeinu Shalom Gaon, so we say that he wrote al yidei hashpas kulnis, that he caused the pen to write by itself through his voice, a voice-activated pen, and that would be these things. Now the problem is, if that's not considered to be a ksiva, so then the Sefer Torah apostle, because you have to write the Sefer Torah.
Kedushas Hashem.
What? So you have to say, I don't know. So Rav Asher always wanted to say that it's called ksiva, but in a strange way. So when it comes to writing a Sefer Torah, it's considered to be writing. But for Hilchos Shabbos, you have to do it in a regular way, and therefore for Hilchos Shabbos it's not a ksiva. For Hilchos Sefer Torah it is a ksiva. But this is like the first source that we find. There's another, moving on to the next source, again just trying to touch on different sources that speak about doing malacha or doing isurim al yedei voice or al yedei thought. So there's a Gemara in Sanhedrin. The Gemara in Sanhedrin writes that you could do lachash on a snake or on a scorpion. So apparently what they would do is they would mutter something, or they would have some sort of enchantment or something they would say, some sort of lachash, I'm not clear what it is, but that would paralyze a snake and a scorpion, and they would be able to trap it. So that's what they would do. So the halacha is... Well, so snake... If the snake is chasing the sakanas nefashis, a scorpion's always sakanas nefashis. But let's say the guy wants to go out and find the scorpions, so he doesn't have to go. He could run away, whatever. As the scorpion's not chasing. The halakha is you're allowed to do lachash on a snake, on a scorpion, and paralyze it, and then you could trap it. And the chiddush is it's mutar and Shabbos. It's not considered to be tzeda. So what?
Go for your mouth.
Huh?
So according to what you're saying, so far you're giving permission to use your mouth for whatever you want so far.
So, again, let me reiterate.
Moshe Rabbeinu used his mouth to write the Sefer Torah.
Right.
Here you have also for sakana nefashos or whatever it is, you're allowed to use your mouth to say verbal things. So
Right. No, so again, this is...
Light on, light off?
Right. So again, let's go back to the first point. This is
That's
more...
action. That's awesome. There is these things.
Yeah.
Today you have this
sure.
usr. This is something different. This is verbal. We're talking about using your mind or using your mouth.
What about this? If it works, also action.
Right, so again, we're not really going to come up with halakha. We're not going to be able to touch all the shilas, but we're just speaking about where we find these concepts of, or different examples, or different applications where you find voice, doing malacha through voice or through thought, or yisurim through voice and thought. So the first one we came out was writing with a quill on Shabbos. According to, we found that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote with a quill on Shabbos. Now we're speaking about lachash, trapping snakes and scorpions through this lachash, through this incantation, and paralyzing. And the Mishnah Berurah says the reason why it's mutter because it's not derech tivis, it's not the natural way to trap, and therefore it's not a malacha. So that's the thing. Now there's a fascinating tshuva from the Geza Yesha, who lived in Tveria about 200 years ago, and he has a shaila. I don't know how practical this is, but if let's say someone wants to make a golem on Shabbos.
A golem?
A golem.
He's a Kabbalist.
Well, you usually do it on Tuesday. He wants to make it on Shabbos. So he makes it on Shabbos. So he wants to say there's... So how would he do it? He would use Sefer Yetzirah.
But if we make a golem, you have to make an indentation of the earth.
That's what it says in the story, right?
That's usher then.
But also,
That's already usher.
Read the prologue, right.
Okay, yeah. What did the Vilna, who was it?
No, the Maharal.
The Maharal. He made an indentation,
Right.
and then he says he's made a davening.
Should I tell you a little secret? But I have to. You can't video this part. I have to write you a note after. No, I'm joking. It's fine. There's no proof. There's no proof that the Maharal ever made a golem. I could really. They found there was a person who wrote it initially. The one who wrote it. They found he has a list of all the books that he wrote. So he wrote some stories, some fiction, some non-fiction. The Maharal he wrote when he listed all those things was in the fiction part. Like there's no very strong source.
But the golem was on top of a shul. It's still there.
Still there.
Right.
Everyone's too afraid to check.
No one can go up.
But you have to know if he really wrote it or not. It's very. But let's say Well, I'll tell you, we do have other situations where other people who we know for sure. We have a Kabbalah that they did make a golem. We have a story with the Vilna Gaon. The Vilna Gaon said that he wanted to make a golem when he was 13, but he got some sort of sign and then he backed off. It's brought down the way you make a golem. It's not you don't necessarily have to knead with the dirt and draw the thing, walk around like it writes over there. What?
So you can make a ghost.
You can make it. A ghost is a whole different thing. That's when the neshama comes back. It's a whole different discussion. But So he writes, if someone wants to make a golem on Shabbos, right? The Chacham Tzvi wrote. The Chacham Tzvi has a fascinating shaila. Could you have a golem be part of a minyan? Let's say you're short one person from the minyan. So you have a golem. Sometimes
2 or 3.
Sometimes
There's plenty of those around.
right. That's good. The whole minyan be golems. Right. No, so could you have a golem in the minyan? He writes in that tshuva that his grandfather made a golem.
And you use it for minyan?
What the Mishabur speaks about it in Simon, I believe it's Simon and Hay. He brings down this tshuva. He just brings it. I don't know why the Mishabur spoke about it. It wasn't so common, but he wrote that he has a shaila about it, and he wrote that his grandfather made a golem. So you do find this that people make golems. Shabbos, could you make it on Shabbos? His shaila is about lush, about you have to need, like you were bringing up, or baina, you have to build. But it's all al yedei dibur. That's what his argument is, and he wants to prove from this Rashi. The Rashi says that you could trap using lachash because it's like the Mishnah says it's not natural. So he wants to say this is not. It would be not natural, and therefore a way to create a person, or not natural way to do lisha or baina, and therefore he wants to say it would be permitted.
So far you're giving haskama for the lights.
So far go
on and off is no problem. Okay. So far.
Right. That's the thing. You could argue on this. You could. What? You don't like.
The whole Goylem thing sounds, I don't know, Goylem, like voodoo. Sounds like Goylem.
It is voodoo. Where do you think voodoo get from?
Yeah, so how are you allowed to do it?
I mean voodoo. That is Kedusha, and there's Tuma. There's Kedusha and there's Tuma.
That was the Maral's, officially the Maral's Goylem.
Yeah, just to make a Goylem for a minion?
Oh, no. I'm sure he made it for something else, and he also made it for that.
All right. Like a robot?
No, but the way they made
it... have a neshama?
No, robot is computer pieces put together. This is Divrei Hashem. This is words coming out of your mouth, creating with Kedushas of Hashem. There's a difference. Okay, big difference.
They're using Sefer Yitzir. They're using where they're... And that's how it's done.
They're using the Koyach of exactly what you said. Hocus pocus. But there's kosher hocus pocus, and then there's trade hocus pocus. That's the difference. Tzaddikim, they tell the future from Tahara, and Bilam and other people saw it through Tuma. That's the difference. They also see future. These fortune tellers, some of them can really see the future, but that's through Tuma. And that's why you're not allowed to go to them. You're allowed to go to Tzaddikim and ask them questions, but you can't go to fortune tellers and ask questions, because it's not the same.
There you go.
Good, thank you.
Let's go on to another thing of Kedusha. So there's a Gemara in Eruvin. The Gemara in Eruvin and Mem Gimel speaks about how David used the Urim V'Tumim. He asked the Urim V'Tumim a Shaila and Shabbos. So there's a Gemara in Yuma. The Gemara in Yuma describes how does the Urim V'Tumim work. So you would ask a Shaila. It's fascinating. The Gemara in Harius also describes it that you would ask the Shaila, the Kohen Gadol would be facing, and then the Urim V'Tumim, or the letters on the Choshen, right, it has all the letters written on the Choshen, they would give an answer. Now, how would they give an answer? So everyone knows the letters would light up, right? It's really a machlokas, just as an aside. There's a machlokas, either the letters would light up, or the letters would actually rearrange themselves. It's a machlokas in the Gemara.
It could be like a computer. It's not that hard to understand these days. We have a screen,
No, that for sure, but this is rocks.
I understand. It's
engraved in rock.
It gave you the right
and
answer.
it gives the light and everything. But today, it's not so far-fetched to understand this. Years ago, nobody had computers. But I was like, today you have a tablet, you have everything on it. Tiny little thing has so much information. It's impossible. Unhuman to have so much information on a little
Did I
thing.
show you Safaria?
Sparia.
Safaria. On the later.
Okay.
And so he says, so you either the letters lit up or the letters rearrange themselves. But either way, however you look at it, that was a problem of ksiva. So yeah, we find that that David HaMelech asked on Shabbos. So one way you could answer, I didn't look it up, but one answer would be that it was Pekuach Nefesh. I have to double check to make sure that's for sure, but David was just the little history of what was happening. Then David was running away and from Shaul, and he heard that a city was being attacked. So he asked the Urim Tumim two shilas. And this, what?
Yeah, we got that Shmuel.
Oh, you guys know better
It's
than
like you're a Kohanim, yeah.
No, so Noiv Kahanim was on his way out,
Right.
and then while he was hiding in one of the midbares, so then he heard about a city that was being attacked. Was it border city maybe? But so he asked two shilas to the Urim V'Tumim, which was unique. You're usually only supposed to ask one shilah at the event. He asked, "Should I go and will I be successful?" But those are the two things you could argue maybe with Pekuach Nefesh. I didn't have a chance to check up the thing. I believe I know there's a Rashi and a Taisus about it. I didn't have a chance to check it out.
Because he would expose himself.
And also that
to
he
shower.
to save people, right? To make sure, yeah. So he writes over there that since it was speech activated, so to speak, therefore it would be okay, and therefore David was allowed to do it on Shabbos. The Meiser Keach argues and says it would be Aser. It's an Isser of Ksiva. Here's you have the first force to reckon with.
Plus, if it was also, the Urim term wouldn't have worked.
So you have to understand that really this whole
It
raya,
wouldn't have been.
this whole
Do not activate on Shabbat, right?
no, but if you think about it, it's very shver. This shackle of it, this last proof or this last point, because the Urim V'Tumim, who wrote in the Urim V'Tumim? You ask the shaila to the Urim V'Tumim, and then Hashem provides an answer through the Urim V'Tumim. We have many times in Jewish history where the Urim V'Tumim did not respond.
Right, for sure.
Well, we have for sure. I mean, when David HaMelech asked the shaila when he was running away from Avshalom, he asked the Urim V'Tumim a shaila. I forget the Kohanim who were there. The Urim V'Tumim didn't answer, so they switched Kohanim Gedolim, or they switched Kohanim at that point. But we do find that the Urim V'Tumim doesn't respond in every situation. So therefore, you could argue that when I ask a question, or when someone asks a question, there is no. I'm not doing malacha at all. Okay, but that's what you can answer. And one last point, and then I think we're going to run out of time. But we all know about the man. Right? It's connected a little bit maybe to this week's parsha. No. So you have the man. They ate man in this week's parsha, no?
They were still eating the
They were
man.
still eating man.
That's like,
They were still eating man.
So that's
They didn't have any
another.
water,
That's
but they
another
were still eating
connection.
man.
mentions when they were going to Edom and asking them.
Oh.
There's a little mention of Mon. I think Rashi mentioned.
Oh, so there you go. Oh, very good.
have you heard that yet? That's something
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Very good.
All right.
And the water and the Mon. Mon.
Okay, so this mom it's very, very connected. this topic.
It's like
Yeah, no, for sure. So you have two connections. So now so Shad is like this. There's a halach. We know the Gemara tells us, right? What did the man taste like?
Anything you wanted.
Anything you wanted to think of, almost anything you wanted to. What do you have to? You just have to think, and then it tasted whatever it tastes like. So far, no problem. You could think on Shabbos.
Oh, Shabbos.
Oh, now we have our first thought activated, Shaila. Right, this is the closest thing we'll have to thought-activated devices.
Wow.
So now the man tastes whatever you wanted to taste like. Now there's a mechilta that says, what happens if you wanted something cooked? What happens if you wanted something roasted? So the mechilta brings a machlokes. One manda amar held that if you wanted something roasted, you wanted something cooked. Let's say you wanted a barbecue, so it would taste like something was barbecued, but it wasn't really barbecued. That's one shita. It was tasted like that. The second shita held, no, it actually got cooked. It actually got barbecued. So that means if you wanted, let's say,
Hot dogs.
a hot dog,
Hamburger. Whatever.
no
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. Roasted lamb.
roasted lamb. So there would be machlekes in the Gemara in this mechilta. Did it actually taste roasted, or it actually was roasted? What happened? So that's the machlokes. And now,
I think it tasted. I think that's the reason they asked for. Maybe they wanted some meat.
right,
If the man can taste
Tastes like
what do you
what the
want?
heck
What
they
do you
want
want
meat?
meat for?
right.
So
Or
it's
onions.
ma-
Onion and garlic. That's what they asked
So
for.
it's masmer from there that the taste was there, but the
That it
appearance was not.
Yeah.
Right, so that you can say the appearance. Someone wants to say, I
It's
heard
an
years
artificial
ago.
flavor. That's what exactly it was. It didn't taste. It was
No,
artificially
it
flavored.
tasted, but it didn't look like it.
I once heard years ago. I heard another way to answer that. What were they so upset about? It could have tasted like a pickle. Yeah, but the crunch of the pickle wasn't there. Like, that's what they were upset about.
The texture.
But who knows, the texture, right, exactly.
That's it's roasted the same
Like
way.
Eves, you know, he's vegetarian, all the hamburger, huh?
Oh, yeah.
That doesn't taste like
No,
it.
it doesn't do it.
Good, pretty good.
It was soya food, that's the problem. They really,
Soya.
they wanted
Well,
food.
well,
Maybe
like
even
stuff
man
like
was
hamburger
soya
stuff.
taka. And he tasted like anything he wanted.
Right. So the shadow would be, what would be if this was done on Shabbos? Could a guy think, you said roasted lamb, I want roasted lamb, I want shulent. but not regular shulent, I want overnight shulent.
But what if he had wanted the hamburger, then right afterwards he wanted ice cream or...
That's a great shadow.
First
Yeah,
of all,
yeah.
there was
Yeah.
but there was no halacha then.
Yeah.
It's after. It was after.
Oh, there you go.
Was that what was after?
You have dairy-free
It was
ice
after
cream.
Matan Torah. No, man was after
There's
Matan Torah.
dairy-free ice cream. You can go to Shelley now, you can have a hamburger and have ice cream after.
Really?
Dairy-free,
I have my bite.
yeah, Shelley, you know, on next
Oh, I
to
didn't know.
No, but they don't have milk. It's not flesh. It's there.
Fleischer's.
No, but he wants milk,
Shelley.
okay.
Oh, this
New
is
Shelley.
Oh, they have this prior ice cream.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yes, but you hear the answer?
Hmm?
You hear the answer? That there's
That's
no,
okay.
the whole prohibition midaraisa from the Torah of milk and meat is only when it's cooked together. So at that point, maybe they didn't have this gezerah.
What if they're thinking about Egyptian cheeseburgers?
So then it's actually brought down, Midrashim say you couldn't eat something, it couldn't taste like something that was
Treif.
also to eat. Yeah, that
You couldn't have.
Midrashim speak out.
You couldn't think of a pork chop.
But you could think of, if you really wanted to have the taste, there's a piece of meat, there's a part of the animal which actually tastes like milk and meat cooked together. That you could think about maybe. But you couldn't actually think of something that was aser. That Midrashim speak out.
Hey, that's a very funny thing. So if you can't have pork chops, how do you make fake pork chops?
No, we can't, because we know what
No,
pork
no,
chops
that-
taste like.
That's a funny
Some
thing.
people do.
Yeah.
If the man didn't taste like anything that was treif, so why do we have fake things
I
now?
like these
That's a good question.
Yeah, right.
What do they call it there? There's some non-kosher stuff. On the menus, they have the name of either pork or bacon.
Bacon.
I don't like. You like that? Doesn't.
It's,
Oh, yeah, the kosher.
CORC
Yeah.
holds that you're supposed to write simulated
Yeah.
bacon. You
Like
can't
the-
write
the
the real
pepperoni on
bacon.
the
No, but it says the word.
I know they're very
I
against
don't
it.
like
You
that.
have to write the words
Imitation.
either fake or imitation or something else. You cannot write straight out.
So what would be if someone thinks that he wants roasted lamb on Shabbos? So there's a chidah who spends a long time speaking about it, but the Minchas Asher wants to say that even if you're going to consider it really cooking, but we have a concept, you're allowed to cook in the sun, right? Because it's not a normal way of cooking. So let's say you had this meat, or this whatever it was that you wanted to cook. So did a fire come underneath the man and then heat up the man and actually cook it, or just it was cooked without water, was cooked without fire, was cooked, but it was just cooked? So that's no worse than cooking in the sunlight. So here you can't bring any proof to our thought-activating devices.
So you can cook in the
Yeah.
sunlight on Shabbat, right?
Yeah, you're allowed to.
So if the
Not
rock
today.
is like the
You would-
150 degrees, you can break an egg and okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but you only have this direct sunlight. You can't cook in a pan that got heated up by sunlight. Only direct sunlight.
You put it out there.
Yeah. So you'd be, yeah. So you would have to put it, but, yeah. I guess we'll have to stop, but